Many of us are trying to just weave through the various plots of disinformation that have been set.
Look, when something like this happens, I start just gathering information, everything. We need to just get all, because sooner or later things are going to disappear, narratives are going to change, things are going to be erased. So it's just like gather everything now and kind of weed through it and see what it is. And when we had the thought of having Jay on, well, this didn't transpire. The shooting had not happened. So we were going to talk to him about predictive programming. But this is actually perfect because we're in the middle of something that could have been predictive. And we've been programmed to believe narratives as we, the collective, not me and you or Jay, because we've seen through this. But yeah, Jay, first of all, what are your thoughts? Just give us kind of the breakdown of what you think, what your analysis is on everything.
Well, I did an interview with Roger Stone for the fourth hour of Alex Jones about 6 months ago exactly. And we batted around the possibilities of what they would roll out as the election drew near. And we felt like one of the cards would definitely be a potential assassination attempt. And of course, that's obviously, I think, what we saw the other day. There's a lot of questions about the event. We've seen already 2 witnesses come forward saying that they had alerted the police. We've seen multiple former CIA people from the Secret Service noting that it's very bizarre that you wouldn't have the most obvious location for somebody to perch themselves to be checked. And so that, according to former CIA analyst Larry Johnson, suggests either willful complicit planning, perhaps, or just insane levels of negligence. Maybe we have too much DEI. We've got too many FUPA-gunted women out there trying to be Secret Service agents. I don't know, but
yes, always look at.
I don't even know.
That was all.
I'll fill you in. This guy, yes, he doesn't have that mindset of me and you, Jay. But yes, I'll fill.
Probably can't talk about that on your show.
No, you can't.
No, it's raw, truthful here. I just don't know what FUPA is.
Yes,
but I mean, a FUPA could take. It probably could have taken a few of those bullets, I guess, to protect Trump.
Okay, I think I got that.
Yes, it's a frontal area
upper area.
Yeah, upper, yes. So let's get into kind of this discussion of predictive programming then, and what the reason we had you on was because in Hollywood we see these things, and you've written 2 books about it, and how can you relate that to this? Is there anything that you've seen? Should we have seen this coming? We're going to talk about these Illuminati cards that came out in 1994 that are very eerie. Let me put this question to you because I'm very curious how you see it. Do we live in a world of life imitating art, or is the art imitating the life? Which how do you weigh that?
Yeah, I've been asked that many times since I wrote the first book, and I think it's a symbiotic relationship between both. So you're going to have influence from the world of art, and then art influencing, the real world, back and forth. I do think there's a lot of key, films that have kind of pointed at this sort of a scenario. There's the Parallax View, which has Warren Beatty back in the 1970s kind of being a mind-controlled patsy for a political assassination at a rally. We have, I think, Stephen King's Dead Zone with Christopher Walken. Wow. Right? You've got Walken predicting through premonitions that somebody might engage in a assassination attempt against a politician. There's the Marky Mark movie, what's it called? Shooter, where he's a patsy. And a lot of these, I think, pull from probably the narrative around Oswald as a patsy and not the actual planner and, mind behind the JFK operation. And I think, most Americans nowadays have already, through polls, admitted that they don't believe the official story of the JFK event. There were subsequent inquiries after the time of the Warren Commission. There was going to be a whole other commission that got shut down because information had come to light that there were certain organized crime figures who had been cheering on the fact that the Kennedys had been taken care of. So I think people kind of are figuring out that a lot of what we've been told probably isn't the real true story. And at times that's reflected in fiction, but also fiction does seem to curiously have that predictive quality or feature. And that's kind of what I investigated in my books. Was it's not totally, my books aren't totally dedicated to predictive programming, but it's a big part of what I talk about, because in some cases I think there's coincidence, dates that come up in movies and this kind of stuff. But in other cases, I do think there is a pattern and a real technique of perhaps softening up the public to ideas that you want to ease them into or inculcate them with, ideas relating to the acceptance of technology, the acceptance of propaganda. Even at a really kind of basic level, probably people are familiar with product placement. I mean, product placement is not exactly predictive programming, but it gives us a window into the way that, companies might pay to have subliminal messaging even, or overt messaging to push an agenda. And likewise, the government, by the way, just last point here, there was a FOIA request some years back. I put it in my second book, where they had declassified several thousands of pages of documents actually relating to intentional propaganda that various government and intelligence agencies had paid for in countless TV shows going back several decades. And this included TV shows as innocuous as Cupcake Wars, where basically the military had paid to have, positive military messages, recruitment messages. The CIA obviously has done this for a long time as well to influence Hollywood. Going all the way back to the OSS was very intimately involved in helping directors like John Ford win an Oscar. So that's the predecessor to the CIA. So this is a long, fascinating relationship. It's a rabbit hole I tumbled down in grad school that I didn't expect to be so vibrant, I guess you could say.
So one thing is we tend to look at these things through the lens of evil, because a lot of these things are them projecting what their plans are for us, per se. The movie Utopia, we cut a trailer to it for Died Suddenly because it was basically the same premise. And I didn't even know about the film at the time, and co-director Nick pointed that out. It's eerily similar to a madman wanting to sterilize the world through a vaccine.
The component of the mockery of the victim is a show of macabre arrogance when done in a veiled or symbolic fashion, and eliciting no significant response of opposition from that victim is one of the most efficacious techniques of psychological warfare.
Your father created a world-changing, not world-ending, world-changing, world-improving omnivirus.
The Event 201 scenario is fictional.
Created a panic, and now everybody's begging for the vaccine.
No. Demanding it with all the entitlement of a first world country.
Yes. And now we have exactly what we want. Hundreds of millions of Americans lining up, offering us their arms, and letting us give them our creation.
I'm pretty sure when every vaccinated person starts dying, they'll trace it back.
What we are doing is far bigger than death. Tell me this. What have you done today to earn your place in this crowded world?
We've got to stabilize the population.
So what's wrong with the population? I mean,
we're too many people.
That was the amazing epiphany we had. We didn't have to kill to accomplish our goal.
Which is what?
We intend to stop human reproduction for 3 generations. Busy, endless global assembly line of babies will grind to a halt.
You're sterilizing people?
Uh-huh. In the first 5 years, we'll start to see major birth rate declines as teenagers vaccinated today hit their childbearing years.
I've been doing high-risk obstetrics for 43 years, and I've seen death and destruction like I've never seen before. 1,200-fold increases in menstrual abnormalities.
Japan's Prime Minister has warned that the declining birth rate is putting the future of the country at risk.
You're controlling the future of human civilization.
100 years ago, the global population was 1.7 billion. 2011, it reached
7 billion.
Global warming, mass extinctions, food, water shortages. All these problems can be boiled down to one thing: overpopulation.
You can't just decide people won't have babies because...
I can and I did.
And it is an ancient rule of both the moral and the common law that silence connotes assent. They brag to us about what they've gotten away with, and we're thrilled by it. That's our only response. It's thrilling. That and the wait for the next thrill. This is collective suicide, of course.
How much as a fellow Christian can you think maybe that God is allowing us to peek inside of this and to maybe give us clues, right? And the divine intervention of foreshadowing some of this things so we can like warn the public.
There is something to that. I think that's perhaps divine providence, or maybe even you could say a kind of spiritual clairvoyance, Holy Spirit kind of giving people premonitions. A classic example of this would be the famous Orthodox Christian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky. He wrote a book called The Possessed. It's also alternately titled Demons. And in that book, this is a few decades before the Bolshevik Revolution, when the radical Marxist socialists basically killed what would eventually be 60 or so million people. And one of the characters in the novel says that they will have to bring about the revolution on a giant mountain of millions of skulls. So it kind of predicts this coming, bloodbath revolution. Other things that Dostoevsky wrote, but probably his most famous section would be the chapter Grand Inquisitor, where he predicts a kind of a massive falling away in the church, particularly the Roman Catholic Church in that example. And so I think that sometimes fiction can just have that unique quality of being kind of prophetic, and other artworks as well. I don't want to restrict it to just, authors or novelists, but there's also in the history of film and novels as well, because a lot of, for example, intelligence writers, they'll take the stories that they learn in the real world and then they'll go and put it into fictional film accounts. Sure. And so you have, stories that spies would write. For example, I wrote my master's, or I did my master's work on James Bond and Ian Fleming. And a lot of Ian Fleming's real world operations he would put into his Bond stories and kind of change the details a little bit, kind of make it into something kind of a little cartoonish and ridiculous. But there's a lot of truth in those. For example, you mentioned the idea of a sort of a scientific madman trying to, cleanse the earth and repopulate it. And that's kind of the plot of Moonraker. In the novel, it's a guy who wants to get revenge on England for World War II, and he's a National Socialist minded person. His name is Hugo Drax. He's kind of the Bond villain who wants to depopulate. He wants to do a great reset on the West in revenge. Now, in the movie version of it, they make it very kind of Star Wars-y with Bond being up in space and all that. And they actually make the villain in Moonraker into somebody who wants to not just cleanse the earth and depopulate it, but repopulate it with his own offspring.
Like
so if you, I was going to say exactly like Epstein. Yeah, it's like Epstein got his idea from Moonraker or something, right?
Exactly. And crazy as me and Edward, we were in New Mexico the day Epstein killed himself, supposedly, and to interview Congressman McCloskey. Yeah. So Congressman McCloskey had a little bit too much to drink, and we was like, we can't interview him today. So me and Edward, we went over to Zoll Ranch, and we went 2 miles through a desert, up his hill, and we went on the Zoll Ranch property the day that he had killed himself. And you can just feel, have you ever been somewhere where you just feel like a heaviness? Yeah.
It was a dark place.
You could feel it. We were on ground, and the ground felt like it felt.
It was like a cemetery,
I felt like there were people buried in this beautiful, lush thing. But I flew a drone into the thing, and it was a surreal moment. But there you go again, where maybe he didn't have Moonraker on his repeat and got the idea, but that same, I would say, maybe not demonic presence, but that oppression, that same kind of whatever that is that wants to push those ideas and move in our world. They gravitate to these people, and you see it in film, and you see it with Kubrick, and a lot of his work. But pertaining to this, so we look at. I got to ask you this too, because this is like the cliche thing with The Simpsons. Have you done What's your thought about The Simpsons? Is it just random things they get right, and if they do get these things right, where does it come from? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the best explanation for that is kind of what I was mentioning a second ago, which is a lot of people who worked in intelligence, then they go and they write novels, they write fiction, and they write screenplays. And this goes back, it's a long tradition going back to what British intelligence operatives would do. And they would do this because in the UK, they have a little bit more stricture on what they can and can't say after they have that service of time in the government. So a lot of times because the Official Secrets Act, they can't talk about what they did. So they just write these stories into fiction. And a lot of classic British writers, famously, that we know of that are famous, like Graham Greene or John le Carré, these characters, they were famously British intelligence operatives. So the same idea goes on, I think, with American cinema as well, where a lot of people that formerly worked in the CIA will write screenplays, or they'll go and consult in Hollywood and so forth. So that's, I think, part of the source of it. And in the case of The Simpsons, I think what's going on is that a lot of those examples, if you dig into them, a lot of them are kind of coincidental. But some of them do seem to be pretty odd and prophetic. And I would say that the reason for that might be that the writers and some of the writers and producers that have been there for a long time come out of Evergreen College. And Evergreen College is a pretty famously known kind of CIA-connected school. So my guess would be that people have kind of inside information that they then seed into the fiction that they write.
Or it's, are you familiar with the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon? Frequency illusion.
I know about that group. Yeah.
Where you like say you want a Volvo, and then you just start seeing Volvos everywhere. We tend to want to see conspiracy a lot of times. Like what's happening now, that poor woman who was like, she's like, pick up her phone. Like now the manhunt is for this woman.
Well, it does. I mean, you studied psychological warfare in graduate school, Jay. So maybe you can speak to this. Is that part of the way to manipulate the public is also diversions. There's all these little rabbit holes that are people being sent down. Like, again, the video that Matt is talking about, this woman you're seeing on screen here, they can't even really make out what she's doing, but they say, oh, look, she's making a smirk or something like this. Look, at least from my perspective, looking at that, it's thought maybe she didn't even know that like there was a shot that had gone out yet. I mean,
because
the chaos of it, right?
We've been to 20 of these things covering them. I feel safe there because it's so well secured. When we checked our baggage in the morning, the dogs, they sniffed it. I was very secure when I was there. Did I think something could happen? I thought maybe someone could rush him, make a knife or some blunt object.
The shooter, they're claiming, took the shot and took several shots at the president and the rally. They're saying that he was inside the inner cordon. Like it's within 400 meters, or 400 feet rather, of the president. Mm-hmm. And first of all, that area, it's so secure. Like you can't walk across a field with a rifle. Definitely can't go up onto a building, the nearest high-rise building, in relation to where President Trump was speaking, without there being a huge flurry of officers and officials seeing
especially on points of vantage that a sniper might use. That's what's so crazy, and that we have so much. It's like this is amazing because before in the '60s we had the Zapruder film. Right, that's it. We were searching and we had one thing and they even spliced it. And now we have all these angles and we're piecing it together. And now the narratives get spun. And now it's like, how can we shape the narrative maybe to divert what the actual story is? So we're trying to piece all this together.
And look, you try to look at the facts, right? Because is this true? Is one of the ways to beat the propaganda, Jay, is to try to really hone in on the things which are verifiable.
Yeah, see,
right,
yeah.
and then we can argue with narrative. I mean, one of the things I think Laura Ingraham was pointing this out, and at this point, it's a confirmed fact that Quantico has the shooter's phone. They're claiming they can't break it, they can't get into it. Yet they've already concluded that he was a lone gunman. He worked by himself, and how could they possibly have concluded